evening. My name is Anthony Brent. I'm the president of the Neighbors of the Mayo Peninsula. I want to welcome you all. Tonight was intended to be a debate between the two District 30B representatives. Unfortunately, Mr. Howard is not able to make it. So we're going to turn it into a little bit of a fireside chat with Mr. Shay. And right now we have a list of questions for Mr. Bill to start with. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the District 7 candidate, Mr. Kitchin. If you would like to stand up for give a quick 30-second spiel, if you would like.
30-second spiel, sure. So my name is James Kitchin. I'm running for County Council in District 7. I spent most of my career as a high school teacher. I now do public policy research at UMBC, where I study city and county governments. And what we're going to focus on is smart growth and education and the environment in this campaign. So those will be some of my priorities when I get elected.
Bravo.
Thank you.
You can vote for me. If you live here, you can vote for me.
That's right. He's going to be running for Jerry Walker's county council at the county council.
Also, just as a quick note, there will be the council candidate forum will be here next month, October 17th. So please show up for that.
Right.
It might be helpful to explain the difference between the county council area and then the House of Delegates area, because they're not complete overlaps.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll explain the county council district, and then I'll let Mr. Shay describe his area that he would be covering. So in Anne Arundel County, we're broken up into 7 districts. Each one has a district representative, and currently our representative is Jerry Walker, and he's term limiting out, so this is his at the end of his time. So Mr. Kitchin is the Democratic candidate for that position, and then the Republican is Jessica Haire. Thank you. And so that debate will be, it'll be here, it'll be the same setup, except we'll have 2 candidates at that time. And what we'll do is we'll have questions and you have a little bit of a back and forth. And so we'll see how that goes. For now, I will turn it over to Bill, who is going to be asking Mr. Shay the questions. And then you, as a crowd, did we have the 3x5 cards to give out?
Get out.
Yep. If you have specific questions that you would like to ask Mr. Shay, scribble a quick note and hand it to one of the folks in the blue shirts. And what we'll do is we'll give it to Bill. And if Bill already has that off of his list, we'll make sure that it gets asked. If he doesn't, we will ask that question. But as it is right now, we're a little informal, so we can kind of give and take a little. But please be respectful. And at this point, Bill, it's yours, and please introduce our guest.
Thank you. So tonight our guest is Mike Shay, who is running for the House of Delegates for this jurisdiction, and I'd like to start by giving Mr. Shay an opportunity to introduce himself and talk a little bit about his candidacy.
Thank you, Bill. And thanks to the Friends of Mayo for all the good work they do here. I would just, Seth Howard, my opponent, that's the second time in 3 days he hasn't shown up to a forum, and he's going to have the opportunity to watch this tape. And I would just like to say, Seth, really you have a responsibility. This is democracy right here, and you have a responsibility to these people. And I know it's hard to defend some of the votes you did, but it would be good to discuss it. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I've lived in the Shadyside Peninsula for 35 years. My wife is here, my son is here, and for 25 of those years, I graduated from business school in California, started my own construction business, a carpenter by trade, for 45 years, and started several other small businesses in Shadyside. But the most important thing that we'll be talking about this evening are the nonprofits that I was part of the leadership and started. 23 years ago, we started South Arundel Citizens for Responsible Development. Not necessarily an environmental organization, but we felt the environmental pressures just like you did. And through those years, we pushed back against millionaire developers and billion-dollar corporations. A little bit more about myself, though. My wife and I ran a tour boat that you may have seen go up and down the West River. That was a business, 100-passenger passenger vessel, Coast Guard inspected. We took out the seniors out of the senior centers and children out of the schools and did some weddings and did some organizations did their yearly trip. Now we are proud to live on a historic farm on the water in the Shadyside Peninsula. And we're part of that food to table movement. Local food, local produce, come to your local table. Our farm used to feed the entire Shadyside Peninsula. It's now only down to 15 acres. But the good news is we have a great life. My son and 4 grandchildren and his wife are going to be living next door. So a little bit about myself. I'm in this race because you need me in this race. I was in this race in 2006 against Bob Kostler, who turned out to be a great person and helped me on the very issues that we're going to be talking about tonight. He helped get Seth Howard into this position right here, who has been voting against the birds, the bees, the flowers, the trees, the air, the water, the crabs, the fish, the oysters, and women, and children, and schools. And if you, that's documented, and that's basically why he's not here tonight, is because they're indefensible votes. But some of the votes he's taken were against smart growth planning, some of the things that we need. So I basically came out of political retirement to be a strong candidate, to have the discussions, to go one-on-one. South Arundel Citizens for Responsible Development, that I'm telling you, saved Franklin Point from 157 houses. You now own this property. It's state property, almost 500 acres on the bay in the middle of the Shadyside Peninsula. One of the things that's similar to here, with 4.8 miles here, Shadyside to Deal is basically 5 miles north to south. Similar issues. After that, we were threatened by the largest size store, Safeway's largest size store, 8 pad sites for national chains, 50,000 square feet of parking, and we pushed back against a billion-dollar corporation. It was store wars at our time. There were 3 large store chains that wanted to come to our community. We now have Christopher's, our local independent grocery store, without all of the other fast food franchises, national fast food franchises. I'm going to end up by the introduction by talking about the most recent victory that South Arundel Citizens for Responsible Development had. 13 years of my life pushing back to save the critical area law against your county executive, Steve Shue. For many years, for about 11 years, developer was in a box, playing by the rules, regulations, and law. Steve Shue comes along, friend, contributor, trying to allow 16 houses transfer into the critical area where he was allowed 1. The difference between now and the old days is we have large pro bono law firms out of Washington, D.C. that came to our aid and our defense. There were so many lawyers, I like to say, at the Board of Appeals that went on for a year and a half that you needed the fire marshal. And those lawyers were on our side. And you should know, the Office of Law, the County Office of Law was basically co-counsel to the developer's attorney, trying to come up with a new legal concept of what a site plan looked like. So I've been and seen the belly of the beast in Anne Arundel politics. I push back against the toughest of the tough. And our problems are your problems. After sign waving on the side of the street on Central Avenue and having cars go by me that fast, I felt my life was threatened. You have more cars, only one artery. On our peninsula, we have one in and out. We have two choices. Shadyside only has one. We're in better shape than you are. Not quite so many houses, not 8,000 residents right here. So, but what I want to end with is I want to share with you is I feel your pain. I've been part of your struggle. There are a lot of similarities. I'm here to help. I'll come out of political retirement. I'm going to push back against those that are part of the problem. And I will say, you have a choice and a great team. Stuart Pittman can't be here tonight because he is debating Mr. Problem. James right here, the young bench that wants to take planning to a new level because we have not had the planning that we need. This is the gold standard that we had in 2001, our small area plan, written by the people, for the people, written of the people, by the people, and for the people. It has credibility, it has legitimacy, and as Bill says, it has defendability. So, envision Maryland. I'm happy to talk about it tonight. I'm happy to learn about it tonight. We need to hold hands and walk this walk together because they beat us when they divide us. So thank you very much.
I'd like to note for everybody's benefit tonight that all the questions we asked tonight are going to be submitted to Mr. Howard. He'll have an opportunity to respond to them. We will be posting them on the website with the video that you will see here. Now, I'm sorry.
Mr. Shay, before we start, could you define your area of responsibility as District 30B, please?
I like to say it's the South County Delegate because it really stands for the rural areas that we care about, the rural character, but it includes parts of Edgewater up near Lee Airport. It's not the entire southern portion of the county. Up by Southern High School and Harwood Road is everything south. But Route 2 going north there, everything on the western side is not 30B. It's 30B. And basically South County, the rural areas, parts of Edgewater, and of course,
Okay. So let's get to the first question. One of the members of our audience tonight asked this question. I'm going to modify it a little bit, but they expressed frustration with their efforts to be engaged with and interact with their elected officials. If you successfully become our representative in the House of Delegates, how will you engage your constituency in your decision-making process in representing them?
you know, that's the chicken or the egg. It's been my experience where the constituency stands up and demands that that our voices be heard and actions be taken, because we have issues in the community, and it's their responsibility to take it on and not chip away at our quality of life and the issues that we're talking about and the infrastructure that depends on our quality of life. When short-sightedness sends developers down here without the infrastructure, it's irresponsible. So it's really up to us. And that's why I say Shadyside Peninsula tonight is talking to the Mayo Peninsula. And our strength is knowing each other and knowing how to make that change. But it's really the responsibility of us to get the attention. And if they don't do it, we vote them out and vote somebody else in.
There's been a lot of discussion in the last year, particularly among the various peninsulas and communities in Arundel County, about the perception that developers have an outsized role in where development and planning goes in the county. How would you cut the balance if you become a delegate at the state level?
If I miss this question, we'll get back to it.
Okay.
But the citizens know there's a two-track policy for planning when you want to get a permit and when a big developer wants to get a permit. Steve Shue has taken $2 million from developers and developer interests. It is pay to play. Some people don't understand that, but in Turtle Run that I'm talking about, one day after $100,000 of contributions came in from engineers and developers, things changed. So it is not necessarily a fair system. And this county executive has granted modifications, approximately 150, when there has been an application to do a project in your community. They have waived the public meeting. This is what democracy looks like. And a public meeting is where you find out about it, where you can ramp up and do something about it. This county executive has done the exact opposite of what Stuart Pittman is talking about. Stuart Pittman is talking about planning, he's talking about transparency, and he's talking about the true cost of new building in your community. So we really have a team here that is on the end of the diving board, and it's really on the end of the high dive. We have given. James has a young family, so we have given. I have the opportunity, because I'm retired, to come out of political retirement and help out. But that might not have completely answered the question, but okay.
So at the delegate level, what can you do to restore the balance between community input and developer input?
There's always a state component to every issue that you're doing in your community. When Paris Glendenning had smart growth, that was an attempt to have the communities do some planning. We're entering our general development plan now. It is a state requirement that every 10 years this county needs to do planning. This county executive wants to hand-pick, cherry-pick a couple people out of each community in the entire county and call that planning. This is the gold standard. You have one that was done by your community. It was done almost 20 years ago. The other one is where the state component has the critical area law. Unfortunately, it's administered by the county. The county, political county executive, can choose planning and zoning to enforce it however he wants. He used his office of law to break every rule, regulation, and law to transfer development into the critical area. So state oversight state leadership and oversight is important on how these communities are planned, when they're planned, the guidelines, and the infrastructure to help pay for these roads. Let me give you one more example. There's going to be one road improvement on the Mayo Peninsula this year at Lock Haven Road. It's going to cost $3.7 million. It's going to be an intersection, a light, a lane. Well, it's a state road. The county is picking up 100% of that $3.7 million because your current delegate to the House of Representatives doesn't have enough political juice and get off the couch to get matching funds. Where for $5 million, you could have considered a roundabout, a circle that we have in deal. Or possibly that $3.7 million of matching funds could have gone somewhere else, into a failing road, Central Avenue here. So the state component is you need somebody like me that has been, that has stood up, that has taken the personal hits, that had to work outside my own county for 7 years because I was persona non grata. The state component is they care. They want it to happen right. But political decisions can run it astray. But citizens that stand up in the community right here, right now, can make a difference. And so the state component is what I'm willing to help out with. And I'm willing to make that phone call. I'm willing to knock on the doors down at the House of Delegates, ask Mike Bush and ask Mike Miller to help with the funds. One more short portion of this. There used to be a place Muddy Creek Road, when it leaves here, goes into our community, turns into Shady Side Road. There used to be 12 crosses where people had died on that road. Our community center, not as nice as this one, we finally had a meeting. Mohan Grover, our local official mayor, he and I got together. We filled the room, and Senate President Mike Miller came. Mike said to me, "Mike, what do they want to hear?" I said, "They want to hear you're going to fix this road." And you know what? 1 year later, that road was fixed, and there hasn't been one death on that road since. And bicycles have room to bicycle on now. And what I call the South County sidewalks, which are the ditch right on the edge of the ride, right on the edge of the driveway. Those South County sidewalks are gone now on Shady Side Road.
Yeah.
Not doing right in addressing the opioid crisis, and what specific legislation would you propose or support to address
You know, that's really a tough one. You know, I went to the Rotary Club meeting. I went to the State House, saw Mike Bush, Steve Shue, do a presentation on opioids. I went to the Rotary Club. There was a presentation on opioids. Little did I know, a month later, my brother committed suicide because of drugs and alcohol. So this is a little tough one for me. But I will tell you that one of Seth Howard's bad votes, one of the worst, was when he voted against opioid reach out. So the State House has come around and they've tried to do a lot of new legislation. But I'm telling you, your current delegate was on the wrong side of some of those votes. And it hurts me, and it's close to me, and it hit my family. And Dan Natal, who runs polling for Anne Arundel Community College, will tell you the new #1 issue in Anne Arundel County is drugs and crime. It used to be education. It's drugs and crime. So the state has a large component. One of the things that should happen is the people that run Purdue Pharma that pressured and pushed these drugs on doctors should be in jail. This state needs to go after them because we need the resources to fix this problem. They created this problem. This was drug dealing at its worst. So the Sackler family that are now in the business of providing drugs to get you off opioids are the same people that got you on opioids. They ought to be involved. Okay?
How would you vote on a state law if it were presented to the Assembly that all boats would have to have holding tanks?
You know, Shady Side Peninsula has been on the leading edge of some of that, where we had a zone that was illegal to flush holding tanks out. I'm all for voting. My wife and I both have a 100-ton master's license. We've been on the commercial end of it. We've done the right thing. That boat, which we still own, is 100 miles south of here, but it gets pumped off, and every boat that has a head should be pumped off. I would be in favor of this. It's the right thing to do.
You hear a lot of people decry currently that the state of politics in our country has become one of demonizing the opposition as opposed to addressing the issue. If you were elected to the House of Delegates, what would you do to try to change that?
You know, we should be really proud we live in Maryland. We have a Republican governor. Things are getting done. Things are getting done in education. Education's slipping a bit. But it's a House and Senate and governor that is pretty much working together at the moment. I think we haven't quite fallen into that trap. When you hear me talk about the votes of Seth Howard, those are the facts. Those are the facts. It's not name calling, not mudslinging. Those are the facts. He should be here to defend these votes in front of you. He can't do it. It was easy to take the votes. I will let you know, 141 delegates. On some boats that we're talking about, he's one of 18. And so he can be on the out there of the out there, but that's really not reasonable and responsible representation. And that's why I have to talk about that. But I can get along. I'm knocking on Republican doors in your neighborhood. And when they hear the issues that I've worked on through the years, the issues that they care about, those are not necessarily Republican or Democratic issues. Those are issues about quality of life and our infrastructure. And they resonate. They resonate with every door I knock on. And I need those votes. I need those Republican votes because there's 2,000 more than registered Democrats. So that's why I'm knocking on those doors, and it's probably the first time that's ever happened.
How would you rate the state government's efforts to provide an equitable quality education in the state, and what would you do to improve it?
Well, that's another reason why it's important to get me up there. The current commission that has going to be unfolding some recommendations this year, a study, long ongoing study, there's going to be legislation and there's going to be votes up there. And we've slipped from the number one in the United States in education, Maryland has, to number 5. So I think it's important. James talks about this very well. He's an expert in it. He's a teacher. Class size is critical. Steve Shue's making, I'm hiring 300 teachers. Well, he's probably 300 short. It's our side that has gotten basically the endorsement of the teachers, and not me personally. I'm not quite sure why, but there's going to be important education votes this session, more important than any session in a long time, because of the current commission.
What specific solution do you think the state should be pursuing to address the transportation and traffic issues in the county that it is not looking at right now?
Well, Central Avenue is a failed road. I'm hard on the campaign trail. The whole time I've been on the campaign trail, this started the first of the year, I haven't seen Sept one time. I was at the senior center this morning. The county was providing a presentation to the seniors on senior mobility, the senior buses. I thought there was going to be a riot. The county has so failed these seniors in their ability to get around that, like tonight, there was supposed to be written questions going forward. That wasn't going to do for those seniors. Those seniors told the director of transportation that when we call, nobody answers. And when there's an answering machine, they don't call back. They said, we can't get to our doctor's appointments. We can't come to the senior center. We can't go shopping. It is affecting their quality of life. This is not necessarily road infrastructure, but this is the infrastructure when I look around the room. I'm going to be 68 next month. And I tell you what, this county better be doing something better than they're doing now in transportation. The seniors say, just make it as good as it was a year ago. That would be a start. So, and in terms of the road, Muddy Creek Road used to be called Bloody Creek Road, if you remember. And one of the most dangerous roads in the state of Maryland. So political juice can make some things happen. It really can. And not having somebody there that takes the money from the special interest groups. I'd like to let you know I've not taken any money from any special interest groups, family and friends only. My opponent is such a lightweight that Bruce Marino, one of the top lobbyists in the state of Maryland, only gave him $100 because he feels like that's all he needs. You're not going to get your roads fixed when you got a lightweight in there. And so it's a combination of knowing how the system works. There's money in the budget. Bob Costa told me sometimes you have to find it. It's in the budget and you have to look. through the budget to find it, to get it done. So it's a combination of hard work, homework, and political juice. And right now, neither of those three are happening.
There's been a lot of talk about the role of money in politics today, its impact on the various races that are run. What specific legislation would you move for or support to address the role of money in current politics?
I'm trying to do it the right way because I can. James and Stuart talk about the fix. The fix was done in Prince George's County basically to clean up corruption. And they said, if you have a pending permit at planning and zoning, no elected official you can contribute to. It was a big help in fixing things there. So we have a South County team that's talking about it. South County team that believes it. South County team that's practicing it. A South County team that wants to fix it. And that's the three other candidates that I'm running against. We believe it. And if it's not in your heart, it's not going to get fixed. And right now, it's not in the heart of the elected people that are in office.
You've talked a lot about the importance of environmental preservation and the need to balance the environmental and the quality of life standards against development. How do you propose doing that and still providing the development necessary as an economic engine for the county?
Let's talk about the economic engine. Everybody remember when Listeria happened? All of a sudden, nobody would buy our seafood. It is so important. Republican governors have said it, hug a tree. You know, these trees are important. There's legislation that we're going to be able to work on in the State House this next time is going to be about saving these trees. The marinas. My peninsula, the maritime industry is huge. We're building multi-million-dollar boats from barrels of resin in deal. Charter boats, the charter fishing fleet, the commercial fishing fleet, all depends on the health of the bay. Franklin Point, Turtle Run, those wildlands that we save, those are the nurseries for the juvenile fish and the crabs and the oysters. If you saw what happened in the Gulf of Mexico right now with phosphate plants dumping nutrients, turning a red tide into the Gulf of Mexico and all the beaches and the tourism going to almost zero overnight. We have a chance. We're not totally behind the curve. We get it. Our people are educated. We just need to demand more of our elected officials and select better elected officials to save our industry, because good, clean jobs depend on a clean, good, healthy environment. And they're directly related.
We have witnessed in the last several years an increase in mass shootings in this country, and unfortunately have even witnessed it here in Annapolis at the Capitol. And when the debate begins, the debate very quickly degenerates into the two sides that are in favor of gun control and opposed to gun control. Where would you take the conversation beyond that?
Let's talk about my race. I will be seeing Sept. I will be debating, and it's going to be in the offices of the Capitol, with 7 of the Capitol staff over there. He's going to have to defend his defense of bump stocks on the floor of the House of Delegates to keep bump stocks legal, because he has them. Bump stocks killed 60 people in Las Vegas and injured 600. He's got an indefensible position. I've listened to that audio when he did that. It's disturbing. And it's not going to go very far at the Capitol. In the primary, We didn't sit next to each other. Primary candidates were with same party candidates. But I shook hands with people that aren't alive today when I left that room. So we have to start by the theme of my campaign, which is reasonable and responsible and sensible. And I think Maryland has taken a lead in this. Stuart Pittman says, we're not afraid to discuss what should be discussed. So I don't have to go very far to really show why I should be your next delegate when I do it in front of the Capitol and do it next to him. And that's why he's afraid to be here tonight.
The Baltimore Sun recently reported an increase in hate-related vandalism in Maryland schools. What would you do at the state level to try to address that?
That's a real good question, you know, and it seems to me to be secular. When my son was going through high school, there was a lot of hate, civil rights problems, and then it seemed to clear up. And it does seem to be cycling, follow a cycle. You know, I know I participated with some nonprofits that had a prize for students in high school to write a piece of literature as to how they would solve this problem. So I think it takes some creative ideas. It's a tough problem. I've been willing to listen to some thoughts like what the kids had to say as to how we're going to solve it. It's probably one of the tougher questions of the evening because it's something I care about, but it's not necessarily something I work for.
What is your definition of constituent support as a delegate?
When you make a phone call, somebody's going to answer the phone and somebody's going to do something about it.
Bravo.
I have been on the campaign trail, door knocking, and I have heard story after story. So instead of just saying it hasn't been done, because I can't say that necessarily firsthand, I can tell you I've heard the tales. But I can tell you that Bob Costa did constituent services. He was a Republican. He did it for both sides of the aisle, and he did a good job, and people still call him, and I still call him. So it's probably one of the most important things you do in the office, is when somebody has a problem, you help them, you direct them in the right place to go.
GPS signal lost.
Vicki, you want to finish that one up for me? It's an important part of the office. Take it seriously.
This is kind of a question to see what you value and where you would go with it. If you were given a $10 million grant to be used in any way of your choosing, where would you send it?
I would start off with some microloans to the community. You know, we really have some disadvantaged people that are having a tough time, and they can be creative people, and it's worked in other places. You know, our community isn't as hard hit as Brooklyn Park or something like that. I can tell you, I wouldn't give it to the gaming interests. $356 million that this county gave to the gaming interests to so-called, so we could have the ability to have the high school graduate from some building. $356 million giveaway. How many million did you say we had to work with?
If you got $10 million to start.
10? Okay. I think starting with some of the community planning. If the county says they don't have the time or the money to do it, that's where it starts. That's where smart growth starts. It doesn't start with sprawl. Sprawl is the absence of planning. And right now we're feeling a vacuum. We're feeling like we have to jump up and down, like we have to write it ourselves. When this gold standard got done, the community provided staff to come to your community to help you work through it. They tried to rewrite it a few times, contrary to what the community wanted, but we stood up. So I think part of that $10 million would certainly go to planning, where it could really make a difference. $10 million.
So let me give you a hypothetical situation. There is an environmental issue here in your jurisdiction that you are pushing for in the legislature, and the speaker comes to you and offers you another area that you're interested in exchange for that area, because there are proposals for it that the legislature or his office is interested in advancing. And you balance the conflict.
We really do have some pretty good leadership in the State House. I know particularly, I know Mike Bush, I know Senator Miller. Senator Miller does play hardball. But luckily, so far, I have not taken any of the money. People have tried to buy me in the past. I'm not for sale. I would say, can you repeat the question just one more time?
Sure.
There's an aspect that I want to.
That you have an environmental project you're interested in your
Right.
jurisdiction, you're
Right.
pushing for in the House of Delegates,
Right.
and the speaker comes to you and offers you something else in exchange for giving up on that project.
You know, one of the ways we had great victories in the Shadyside Peninsula is we didn't take on every issue, but we took on one that might not look winnable at the time, but it was important. And when you did win it, it definitely sent a message. And if there was one environmental issue right off the top of my head that I think we could do, that would be standing. And standing is basically when you want to take one of these developers to court, when you want to go to the Board of Appeals. You have the right to go to the Board of Appeals. You know, the Friends of Mayo right now would have a hard time taking a developer with the way the laws are right now and be able to go forward in court. South Arundel Citizens Responsible Development had been on the ground in that exact area for 23 years. And I was on the stand for 5 hours, 2 different days, to convince 7 judges, who are the Board of Appeals members, that we had the right to go forward and bring a case forward that was a case of merits. You had to fight for the right to go forward. And this really, really should be changed, that environmental organizations should not have to fight so hard, because the fights we fight in our community are hard. And we have to give up our time, our discretionary time, but we shouldn't have to fight for the right.
There is, in this jurisdiction, a rather large, and some people would say invisible, Hispanic population. What is your understanding of the biggest concerns they face, and how would you address them as a delegate?
Well, they're human beings, number one. And they have families just like we do, too. They have the day-to-day problems of putting food on the table. And compassion is a large segment of our community that is really outside of the current county executive, that would put families in jail and separate families. So don't count me as part of that segment. I'm from the family.
A lot of people run for public office because of things they think that are wrong. What makes you hopeful? What do you see that's positive?
I'll tell you what gives me the energy to keep on going. It's victories to let you know you can beat City Hall. It's empowering. It's empowering when people say thank you. It gives you the energy. And it's important that you set a model that others can use that model and win. It's important you send a message into the community, to the developers, that better have deeper pockets than the last guy that lost. Because if you're a hobbyist wetland developer, which we have fought, a retired engineer that just thought he knew better than Mother Nature, you better have deeper pockets than the guy who came before. And so you send a message at the same time. But if I leave you with any message, it is that it's possible when we hold hands and we work together.
What do you think is the biggest thing that's hindering middle-class Marylanders in establishing a stable and productive financial future for themselves and their families? And how would you address it at the state level?
I'm a carpenter. Had my own business almost since I graduated from college, probably in 1975. 50th high school reunion was coming. I sure would have liked to have trained more carpenters and pass that skill along to other people. We really need some decent working apprenticeship programs that would help our economy grow. We do have a lot of small businesses in our community, but a lot of our small businesses are hand to mouth, just like our paychecks put food on the table. It's really education. You know, you pay me now or pay me later, like Andy Granatelli used to say. And when he tried to sell STP, TV commercials. But that education is really an investment. And we could really do more for the trades and trade people. Unions used to do a good job of training people. But the unions aren't here like they used to be. The unions that have endorsement, they understand the concept. But we really need to share some of these trades firsthand from the small businesses that are in our community. And it's something that would be easy enough to do, and with good leadership.
When the citizens of the Mayo Peninsula created Envision Mayo, there were 6 major topic areas they wanted to focus on. And I'll read them for the benefit of everyone here, and then I'll hand it to you so you can see it. They were health and safety, infrastructure and transportation, parks, natural areas, the environment, growth and development, and community character, quality of life. Which one do you think is the most important, and what would you do to advance it at the state level?
Is this a trick question? They're all related, and they all fall under our heading of quality of life. They each one individually get chipped away at every opportunity by the people for short-term profits that want to come into our community, treat us like an open pit gold mine, and then leave. We have to defend our community against these short-term interests. We have to help the people that live in our community, work in our community, want to build out our community to meet our needs of our community. Some of the ones, the roads and infrastructure and the schools, that's where you need people like me that have a proven track record. They're standing up to power at great personal expense. But I lived to tell about it. Retired some of the ones that wanted to hurt. Claimed such as on the front page of the Capitol. Claimed that I retired Janet Owens, a Democrat. And she hasn't done it. So they are related. They are what we care about. They depend on us to stand up and make a difference with the resources that we have in our community and the people that live in it.
We've talked a lot about the need to preserve and protect the environment, to preserve and protect quality of life. You've traveled around the county, you've talked to constituents. What else are you hearing is significant, and how do you intend to address it in the State House?
The residents feel, first of all, we live in a beautiful place. Let's just start there. But it's not by accident, it's by hard work. And I think after this evening, you know I don't follow it. But the residents feel, in general, we're slipping. And they feel helpless. And they don't know where to turn to. And it's not one particular answer, but it's just a general feeling. And it does have to do with these factors that you've identified, that are the real talking points. But I would say if there was something that's not here, they don't necessarily feel like things are getting better. When the county executive wants to put more cars on this road to head to your parks before he's done your infrastructure, and he hasn't done the planning to figure it out, he's not on your side. That $10 million is on your side.
Another hypothetical. You get elected, you serve your term in the House of Delegates, and you decide, I've done my best, I'm going to stop and walk away. What is the signature piece of legislation you want to say, that's what I did for my constituents?
You know, standing was one I talked about. Apprenticeship is one I talked about. But I've worked on the environment so much and supporting local independent businesses. I would like to be, and I would ask you to send me to be on the Economic Matters Subcommittee for Small Business. That's where he has failed. He has a small business. His comptroller of the state of Maryland had to take him to court in December because he owed $14,800 in back taxes. And he had the opportunity to do a payment plan. They just don't go immediately. This is somebody that can't run his own small business. I have a business. I've run businesses. Started my own. Put me on that Economic Matters Committee. Put me on that Small Business Committee. I will help create that economic engine in our community that we need. Farmers, we've worked on with my wife and I, we're small farmers, the economic engine to help small farmers in this community because we care about open space. Large farms are not the future in Anne Arundel County. Small niche farming is the future of Anne Arundel County. Farms you can visit, farms you can buy the products on. So we really need leadership. And that's what I plan to provide, and that's what I'd like to be, and that's what I'd like to do.
I'd like you to look 4 years ahead. You're sitting in the State House.
Do I get a law degree after this? I mean, how does this work?
What's the next economic engine for Maryland?
Well, let's think local, because I'm here to represent local. I mean, I'll make votes that affect the state. We have a large maritime industry here. We have commercial fishery. We have what's left of a farming industry. So that maritime industry needs somebody looking out for them. Those commercial fisheries need somebody looking out for them. You know, when the State House does something, like when we put a moratorium on striped bass, you know, striped bass come back. That's leadership. So I can work on both sides of the aisle. There's a lot of commercial fishermen that support me. And necessarily, they're on the other side of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation on a lot of these oyster sections, or this or that. I have a foot in both worlds. And I have a foot in the farming world. And the farmers in the large farms do not have a foot in the environment. But I have a foot in it. And it is this kind of working together that was one of the earlier questions that I think I can make progress on and go along and protect our community in terms of economic business.
There was a time when government service and being involved in public service was considered a calling and something that everyone was called to do. And now we have a lot of millennials who are just kind of very cynical about the process. What would you do to try to change that if you're elected?
Well, I knocked on a door here, it was Saturday. The younger people I'm finding are independents. There was one Republican in the House, one Democrat in the House, and two independents. And when I walked up to the House, I didn't know the names. All I knew was the parties, and I knew the ages. So when I was talking to them, it was not a tailor-made speech. It was an introduction as to who I was, what I care about, what I've done, and how I want to help them. I had all 4 boats, and they took a yard sale. So it's a message that resonates. And maybe you've seen my scooter. That's the scooter going through the neighborhoods with flames coming out the back. When I'm in the neighborhood, you know it. And it helps get the message out. You have to be creative to get the message out. You cannot depend on the Capitol to showcase these races. How many times have voters gone to the polls and they just don't know? I'm trying to get the message out the best way I can. It's not cheap, it's not hard, but I learned one thing. When you go up against a millionaire developer and a billion-dollar corporation, if you're creative, you can level the playing field.
What is your definition of transparency in government, and how would you advance it as a delegate?
Stuart talks about this best, I think, and James touches on it. James talks about the framework. Stuart talks about, and James also talks about that we don't have facts to make our decisions. If the county council is sitting there, they're making decisions, and they really don't know, just like the voters don't know. And that's because if somebody is holding the facts, they're not sharing the facts. And they're certainly not sharing it with the citizens. Bill, we started this evening tonight by saying I think there's 650 info lots on the Mayo Peninsula. And you told me, well, we really don't know. And I said, well, back in the day when we were trying to find out on our peninsula, they wouldn't even begin to tell us even if they did know. So transparency and real transparency is let's know the facts. Let's have the plan. Let's bring forward new, young, educated people that can help us with the models, that can not sell our community to the lowest bidder and put our community for sale. You know, one of the things Anne Arundel County has not done, because they're afraid of what's called a taking. Asked if this was, if I'm going to get a law degree after this, but you know, I knew very little about the law when I started jumping up and down and tried to save important lands. But a taking is what the county fears. They're afraid the developer's going to sue. The county needs lawyers that care about you, that are as good as the developer's attorneys, and are not afraid to go to court. Because the county right now thinks that a developer interest is guaranteed. To me, an investment includes risk. If your property's downzoned because you didn't do something with it, well, you know, you didn't do something with it, and that was an investment. And the county needs to stand up tall. I believe you asked me the state aspect, but Stuart would stand up tall. He wants to know what this development is going to cost our community before it goes forward. And I guarantee you, that office of law would be a different office of law, and they'd be standing up for you instead of the developer, because I've seen them stand up for the developer, up close and personal. So at the state level, transparency has done, I think, a slightly better job. You can see where the votes are. I know where Sept Howard's votes are. This is just a culling of Sept Howard's votes. It's really 6 pages of these votes that you would not be comfortable with. So I've been dealing with the county for the last few years. We need transparency at the state level. I would ensure and work to make sure it happens. But we can't move forward without transparency, without citizens.
What are your thoughts on the Kerwin condition?
I think our states, our county schools are slipping. Our teachers are crying. They want help. I think the administration, this is my, I'll share with you on all the issues. There's a school component with development. John Geary, when he was county executive here, wanted to overfill our schools to 120% in the high schools and 115% in the elementary schools, so that builders could keep building. The adequate facilities law, which is touched on in here, should be our protection. The schools aspect of the adequate facilities law is the only aspect that has slowed and stopped development in our community. And now the laws have been changed only for 6 years. Schools have slipped from first to fifth, but I can tell you, it's a good thing we're going to have an elected school board. That's a beginning. My introduction to the school board was the school board gave away a sweetheart deal so that private companies could put cell towers anywhere they wanted to on any of the school properties and pretend to pay the county back. It's a pretend. Many counties around the nation are no longer allowing cell towers in elementary schools. Shadyside Elementary, the school board is attempting to allow it to be put into place. So our community, as we've done before, organized, stood up, pushed back, but we're in a different venue than we had been before. We were going to the school board. I thought I had seen everything at the county council and the state house, and the belly of the beast, and the county executive, and the people that wanted to hurt me. It topped it all at the school. So thank goodness we're going to have some elected seats and talking about the issues for the first time ever. The feeling they have to be responsible. And as for the current commission, like I said before, they're going to have recommendations that should be taken up at the state level. And I will be there on the front line voting, unlike Sept, when you have a school district that is having a problem with capacity, that maybe we should send some extra funds there. It was one of 18 that voted against that. So I'm going to be on your side, not the developer side that wants to overfill our schools, which is traditionally attempted to happen.
Crime being an issue in Anne Arundel County, what do you see the state doing to address a crime issue in Maryland? It's not just the drug-related crime, but in general. How do you see the state being a more effective partner with the counties in addressing the crime issue?
Well, like I said, there's a state component to every issue. And recently, my family was broken into. And I know what it feels like to have been robbed. You feel violated. It's not like we weren't able or couldn't replace what was stolen. I mean, they were valuable things. The scooter that we talked about that has flames that I'm going neighbor to neighbor was essentially towed. And the businesses in my small community put my scooter back together. Luckily for you. There is a state component, but before I get to that, my 35 years that I've lived in Shadyside, on the other side of the farm fields we live in, is Scotttown Road, a known drug market for the entire time I've been. And when the county police come, and they come with the detectives, and they come with the chief of police, and this and that, and people say, well, why don't you park on that road once in a while and disrupt us? And they say, well, we're doing things. The fact of the matter is things haven't been done. And if I was there, I would try to dial in the state component because it's a known problem area that has been there for a long time. And it causes havoc in the community. One of the things we should remember, and this is about everything we're talking about here tonight. It's so hard and takes so much energy to put things together and have solutions and hold it together. And it's so easy to tear it apart. And if these things we're talking about, crime and drugs, tear your community apart like that, as quick as hysteria fish. And the energy that we need should not be wasted on
on things that are solvable. This good energy that we have, I would translate at a state level to hopefully have some of this planning, this smart growth planning. When Governor Glendenning did it, had an enforcement component to it, and what our communities should look like with sidewalks and bike paths. And focus, development where focus should be going, not where it wasn't intended to be. So the state component comes in again in smart planning and crime. But I've been affected by crime and I've been affected by drugs. And some of these places should have been cleaned up a long time ago.
What do you think is the biggest challenge facing senior citizens in our state, and what would you do to try to get the state to address it?
Well, like I say, I was at the senior center this morning. I've only been there twice, and it was a long time ago. But I'm going back to a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is seniors vote. But you know what? They really bring a lot of experience to the table. And it was very enlightening to me. And it reminded me when I was younger and standing up and say, you're not fixing this problem. And they stood up to the director of transportation for the county and wouldn't let him move on to another question. Wouldn't let them get back to just filling in the cars. And the seniors have real issues. They need to get to the doctor. They're going, why can't I get to the doctor? Why can't I go with a senior moment? The seniors there, they had a theater group, and they play in different places around the county for other seniors. And they go, why can't we have a ride to get there? The needs are great and the needs are small, but the needs are not getting met. I can tell you that in my heart. It was one of the most moving things on the campaign so far. And I'm not going to forget. I'm going to say.
If you get elected as state delegate and you have an opportunity to address your fellow delegates, what is the first point you want to make to them?
I think one thing we should remember is Sept has been there for 4 years. Did Sept bring this kind of experience to the office when he was here 4 years ago? One of the things that I would bring to the Arundel County delegation, which is a pretty good delegation, but they need one more of our kind to help. And one of the things that I would bring is how to work together. I know how to work together. I mentioned it through all segments, and there are all segments on the Arundel County delegation. But we could move to Northern Jordan if I'm there. But the Anne Arundel County delegation needs Mike Bush. Mike Bush is the one that brings the money for the schools to Anne Arundel County. Mike Bush needs help. Mike Bush is the one that has the juice in the House of Delegates. I know Mike Bush. Franklin Point got saved because of Mike Bush. Franklin Point got saved because of Mike Miller. I have a working relationship with the powers that be. And to some people, they say, "Oh, don't mention that." That's the reality of it. If we really want help down here, we need somebody that's going to fight your struggle. That's been there, that knows it, knows what it looks like, knows what it tastes like, isn't afraid to stand up. The first thing I would bring is helping out and working together.
You've been involved in county affairs for quite a number of years. You've talked about your involvement in environment and development. You've been walking around the county, you've been talking to people. What was the one issue you didn't know about? What was the one issue that surprised you?
I think the need of the seniors right now is the most moving to me. I'm going to be 68, like I said. When I looked around the room, there were a lot of people 68. There were a lot of people older. But I think the seniors have been the forgotten ones. Usually it was South County that was the forgotten ones. And we used to say, that's okay, you can forget about us, but don't come down here and just bring all your developments and think you're not going to bring the infrastructure. You can forget about us up to that point. But I think the seniors are the forgotten. And the seniors are the ones that have needs. Immediate needs, solvable needs. And that's what I've learned about on this campaign. And I don't think it's going to be that hard to help out.
Can you ask any follow-up questions, or you're only going to be listening?
Go ahead, ma'am, if you have them, sir.
Okay, so you're talking about seniors. One of the things that did not pass this legislation, even though it keeps getting put in, is to not tax retirement pay.
Yes.
And the fiscal notes on that bill says that the state would lose billions of dollars because of taxes that would not be paid. But seniors cannot afford to stay in Maryland, and so that the more retirements from federal government, which now still have a pension, are moving out of state. So at a state level, would you vote for that bill that will probably reintroduce this legislative series that says do not tax retirement pay?
It's a really good question. Let's start with where I just finished on the last one, that I'm building my sensitivity to seniors now that I'm a senior and I see the needs. Next Wednesday night, I'm speaking to, Wednesday afternoon, lunch in Galesville, speaking to retired federal workers that are having a problem staying in the county. So they have given me materials to study. I'm studying them. That's next Wednesday. I'm becoming sensitive to the problem, and certainly I think people that grew up here, that live here, should really study. So I'm sensitive to that need. It's all the theoretical questions that you asked me. Let's call that one the theoretical one for the moment. But I think I'm with you.
Because you'd be losing a lot of state money with the things that Democrats don't do last time.
Yes, ma'am.
What I hear, that there are places like the one where my sister lives in New York, where when people need to go to the doctor, when people need to do various things, they call her up. She's not the only one. There's always people who will, when they can, assist somebody who needs a ride from one place to another. Now, my understanding is that in Anne Arundel County, there's such an organization that's called Partners in Care. My husband and I are not too busy to have time, any more time, to run back and forth with the doctor. But what's been done to coordinate between what the county does offer in buses, etc., and the people who are already in the organizations that are already out doing this? I think there's a serious coordination problem.
It's a good question about how is, at the state level, how would you foster private organizations and public civic organizations with state and county resources?
It's a good question. On other issues, it's really been done before. What I was seeing today is just a total lack of coordination at our senior center and the transportation and needs services. Pardon? This is the South County Senior Center. That the seniors were saying, I get on the bus, they're going back and forth. I'm on the bus for 2 hours. to get to where I go. I can't plan if that happens. I need to go to the restroom. There's no restroom on the bus. These kind of solutions have been solved before in terms of picking up and planning. If you were a private business and you were delivering lumber out of a lumber yard, you would have figured out the stops better than that. And so at the state level, where we've had planning in the past for other issues, other things, it would be something I would look into. I'm learning more about it right now. And it seems like something that's fixable. And I know there's groups in the community, nonprofit groups, that try to help out. And there's not coordination that I know of. But it's like I said, I'm going to the senior center more and learning more. And I'm going to learn more from the federal employees and from the state and the county. And I think at this point, that's what I can promise you, that I am a good student, and I am a quick learner, and I haven't worked on all issues in my community. But what we find is the quality of life issues are all related, even though I haven't worked on all of them.
We're coming to the end of our time together, and on behalf of the neighbors of the Mayo Peninsula, I want to thank you for coming out. We also want to encourage you to talk to your neighbors about what you've seen and heard tonight, and most importantly, go and vote. As a retired Air Force officer of 30 years, I can tell you that I have been in a lot of places where your right to go into a polling booth alone and pull a lever is not given. So take the opportunity and vote. There is strength in numbers, and the votes do count. With that, Mr. Shay, I'd like to give you an opportunity to close for us and move on.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for this. This is what democracy looks like. It really is. It makes me feel good that people that turn out and care. There's something that you can do other than just put a letter. You've got some great candidates. You're going to be seeing James. You don't have to take my word for it, but James, Sarah, and Stuart are talking about the issues you care about. They have track records about the issues you care about. And you can go to their website. You can get a yard sign. You can tell your neighbors. And you can say, I saw Mike. And Mike's the real deal, from deal. But get involved. And I call it investing in your racehorse. If you went to the racetrack and you bet $2, watching that horse go around the track would be more fun. So I'm not saying invest in money, but make this race, which is an off-year election race, and a lot fewer people go because it's not the presidential race. But this is the race that makes a difference in your community. And when you get involved, this race will be more exciting for you when it comes to November 6th. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all for coming. If you don't know about the neighbors of Mayo Peninsula, we got some business cards up here. You can check us out on Facebook or on the web if you